Welcome to AI in 8 minutes or less, your daily AI update. So, a new AI model has just been released from China, and trust me, the story behind it is way, way bigger than you might think.
I mean, that's a huge claim, right? But the analysis here argues that this new model could genuinely be the one that completely shifts the global balance of AI power. But here's the twist. The threat isn't that China just built a more powerful model. This isn't about a direct power race. The real story is so much more subtle, and honestly, it's way more dangerous for the US AI economy. Okay, let's get into it. The model at the heart of all this is called DeepSeek V4. So, what exactly is this thing and what makes it so special?
Well, for starters, the specs are absolutely top tier. It's built using a mixture of experts architecture, which is just a super clever way to make a giant AI model run really efficiently. The Pro version has a mind-blowing 1.6 trillion parameters. That's how we measure its complexity. It can also remember a huge amount of info, 1 million tokens to be exact, which puts it right up there with the best of the best. And here's the real kicker. It is completely open source. So, how good is it really? Well, if you look at the big benchmarks for things like reasoning, math, and coding, a really clear pattern emerges. The newest models from places like OpenAI and Anthropic are at the very top, and DeepSeek V4 is right on their heels. Not better, but incredibly close. And that right there is the big question. If it doesn't actually beat the top American models, why is everybody so worried? If it's not the king of the hill, what's the actual threat here? The real danger, the reason this one model could totally upend the AI world, all comes down to one simple, incredibly powerful factor. It is all about the cost. And when I say the price is being used as a weapon, I am not exaggerating one bit. The difference is absolutely staggering. Just take a look at this. You can see the big US models have a high bar. Super smart, but super expensive. But then you look at DeepSeek V4 Pro, and especially the little Flash version, their bars are tiny. You're getting incredible performance for a tiny fraction of the cost. Let me put it this way. Running a top-tier US model, that might cost you around $30 per million tokens. The smaller, faster Flash version of DeepSeek, we're talking pennies, pennies. For most businesses, having a model that's almost as good for literally a fraction of the price isn't just a good deal. It's a complete no-brainer. Now, this didn't just happen out of nowhere. It's really just the latest move in this constant back and forth, this cat and mouse game between the US and China in AI. Take a look at this timeline. Over the last couple of years, we've seen this cycle just repeat itself. A US lab releases some groundbreaking new model, creating this huge gap. Then, just months later, Chinese open source models catch up, almost completely closing that gap. Then, the US leaps ahead again, and boom, China closes in once more. It's just a relentless pattern. And this whole trend brings up a massive geopolitical question. You know, the US has put these really strict export controls in place to stop China from getting the best AI chips. So, are they actually working? Well, the answer seems to be a very complicated yes and no. On one hand, yeah, the controls are working. China is definitely constrained. They can't get all the top-tier hardware they want. But on the other hand, it's forcing them to innovate like crazy on the software side. They have become absolute masters of efficiency, figuring out how to build these frontier models even with less powerful chips. Okay, so let's tie this all back together. Why is this radical efficiency, this dirt cheap price, so dangerous for America's leadership in AI? To really get it, you just have to put yourself in the shoes of a business leader. Right now, imagine you are the CEO of a company, and you need to start building AI into everything you do. You've got a choice. On one side, you've got a closed-source US model. It's a little bit more powerful, but it costs an absolute fortune. On the other side, you've got this open-source Chinese model. It's good enough for pretty much everything you need, it costs almost nothing, and you get total control to tweak it and host it yourself. For most CEOs, that choice is painfully obvious. And this is where it gets really scary. If American companies and our allies all start building their technology on top of Chinese open-source AI, it creates a massive strategic risk. All those trillions of dollars being poured into the US AI economy might not see a return. Even worse, the US economy could become dependent on models controlled by a geopolitical rival, a rival who could change things up or even cut off access whenever they want. So faced with this kind of economic and strategic threat, what can the US even do? Well, the source material suggests it's got to be a two-pronged attack.
First, US labs have to get serious about open source. They need to release powerful models of their own to give businesses a real alternative. And second, those big closed-source models have got to become radically cheaper and more efficient. That massive price gap just has to close if they want to stay the default choice.
This all leaves us with one final huge question. In this global race for AI leadership, what's going to win in the end? Having the absolute most raw power or creating the most efficient and accessible tool? The answer to that could define the next decade of tech. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to AI in 8 minutes and never miss what matters.